Hey, we're back. Another episode of WMD Now. I am joined, like always, by Derek Johnson. Derek.
Hi, Max. We hope our audience is excited for today's episode of WMD Now. This is something I'm personally very interested in, and I hope our viewers will be as well. Max, what are we talking about today?
All right, today we're talking about the events taking place on Reddit and Wall Street over the past week, where if you're not familiar with what's going on, a subreddit known as Wall Street Bets has been taking on Wall Street speculators at their own game. And this game, you might ask, speculation. Derek, why don't you cue us in on that?
So, speculation as an idea already has many problems of its own, and it's basically a legal way to manipulate the market if you have enough money and clout on Wall Street. So, the general premise of the story is this: Wall Street has taken the short position on GameStop stock, expecting it to fail. The subreddit Wall Street Bets took this sort of as a challenge and has caused a headache for investors on Wall Street, causing many hedge funds to lose billions in the process. Max, what's your reaction to all this?
Well, first, I want to clarify I'm on the team of the little guy here, and I'm sure you are as well. And I think majority of the public is as well taking the side of Wall Street Bets people, the Redditors, not the people in Wall Street. And, from this, you see both sides of the aisle come out and agree on what's been going on in Wall Street because, these tactics that Wall Street Bets and these pump and dump people have been using, they've been used on Wall Street for decades by hedge funds and et cetera. And this time, it's being flipped on them, whether they're short selling or the whole pump and dump fiasco with manipulation of the markets. But this time it's ordinary people doing it. And now it's a big deal.
Right. You've seen Wall Street use these tactics for decades. You look at 2008 and the housing crisis, how Wall Street was giving people bad mortgages and bad loans and then betting against them to fail, things like that. You saw it this past year with the coronavirus relief, how we gave all the money, to the big businesses and only allowed the big businesses to stay in business while allowing small ones to fail. But, in this situation, once the money is being taken from the top and being brought back down to average citizens, now the alarm bells are ringing.
Yeah, and what else is funny about this whole thing is Wall Street is asking to be regulated right now. Let that sink in. The same people, who lobby billions annually. I think in the 2020 election, it was over, $2 billion they lobbied, and that's just on, Wall Street alone. So, they're always, lobbying to keep Wall Street unregulated. And now they're actually crying for regulation because guess what? The small time players, the people, are the ones influencing the market now and not these hedge funds and, these Wall Street speculators.
Right. It's almost like now these uber capitalists are asking for socialism. I'm not here to make a statement on which economic system is correct, but isn't it funny how the moment all these huge banks and billionaires lose all their money, they're the ones calling out for the government to step in and, fix the solution. Like in 2008, like we just were talking about, how they received hundreds of billions of dollars in bailout money, even though they were the ones who caused the wreck in the first place. So, this is just a perfect example of how the rules change to fit what they want.
Yeah, no, and if you look at the response of Wall Street, it has been exactly that, changed the rules of the game. They've limited or completely shut down trading for some of these, meme stocks, as they're calling it. And you see apps like Robinhood and others, enforcing it for them. So, it's a rigged game. And when you see it's being rigged against small-time players, it just goes to show how much, what is actually going on in Wall Street. You see it clear as day.
Yeah, and we even saw the CEO of NASDAQ go on CNBC the other day. And aside from the obvious about how she thinks this is dangerous and affecting small time players, even though, that's the basic premise of the market, that, it's built for risk. So it's at the user's discretion if they want to spend their money. But besides all of that, she even hinted at, that she wants further censorship on these companies. She wants censorship on Reddit, Twitter, Discord to limit people from spreading these sorts of ideas. And I think this is kind of fitting in with the whole theme of what's been happening recently on how censorship is being pushed more and more. And this is just another example of it. And I think this is alarming for many reasons. And I think once you continue on this path, there's no real stopping it.
Yeah, no, and like you kind of said, the war on censorship continues. And, I take the stance of, any sort of censorship is bad, unless it's, for extreme cases. And, with, all the press on the stock market, there has been some good, has come from all this. And it's people realize that, collectively, when we do, work together, these subreddits, Wall Street Bets, we can accomplish things. And that just goes to show what you could take from this, on a political level of other things. But, when people work together, things do get done. And, when we rally behind each other, that just goes to show. And I've seen, countless amounts of story from going on these subreddits and seeing people that, just put in $5, $10, $20 just to buy some of these stocks, and, they got to take their family out to dinner or something. It's not these people trying to make money. It's just the little things, people barely get by in the middle of a pandemic, one of the worst recessions since the end of World War II. So, it's not, I hear it in the media, there's people saying, oh, they're just people trying to get rich, no different than the stock market people. I mean, these are just ordinary people trying to make an extra dime, and that's all it really is. And another thing you take away from this whole Wall Street fiasco is that people are agreeing with one another. You've seen AOC and Ted Cruz come out and both attack Wall Street, as funny as that may seem. And, Ted Cruz called it, it's less about business, more like casino gambling. That's exactly what Wall Street has turned into and has been since, the 80s. So you also saw AOC say it's systemic problems. I completely agree. And she called for more regulation and enforcement, whether that's, because they have are agreeing with the subredditors, or Wall Street saying it because they need to be regulated to protect themselves. It's a broken system, and you see that, clear as day now.
Yeah, and I think it's important that you made the distinguishment between the small time players and the big ones. When your net worth is 50 billion, your standard of living doesn't change whether that goes up to 52 billion or any increasing amount of order that high, because at that point you can own the world. But when you only have a net worth of 20,000, or that's your yearly income, an extra few $100s makes a huge difference in what you can do with your life and with your family, and how much security you have. So that's super important. But something that I think we need to hit on with these politicians is how they all suddenly seem to take the correct position when something this obvious comes out. We didn't hear a single person back when the CARES Act was first passed come out against this. In fact, at the time, there was one House of Representatives member named Thomas Massey who was pushing for the vote to be recorded. You know how most votes you have, this person voted yes, this person voted no, but they overruled them. They made it so it was all anonymous, so that there was no consequences for your actions, and that it was a blind vote. So, it's upsetting to see that now they're taking the right position when we already gave $5 trillion upwards. But
yeah, when it's clear as day, they take the right side.
Right.
And that's it too. They only care when it's convenient. And if Wall Street Bets, these subredditors never took on Wall Street and got this media attention, there wouldn't be a discussion about the stock market and market manipulation and the short selling and really just this casino that is Wall Street. There wouldn't be on the topic. But because a few people organized and did something, it is a topic that we can work to get better at.
Yeah. I just think there's a fundamental issue though with how our politics is currently set up. So you have people running for office and receiving mass amounts of donations, specifically from Wall Street. And now we expect them to regulate the people funding their campaigns. It's just not realistic in the current way things are structured. So I think we need to be pushing. This is a great opportunity to push for campaign finance reform, Wall Street regulation, things of that sort, because we see it throughout history. The people in government have perfected this game of taking all of our money and yet giving us nothing in return. Our infrastructure is garbage. We spend all of our money overseas in wars. And while at home, we have a homelessness problem. We can't even give our people $2,000 checks. It's just really, really disappointing.
Yeah, no, and I just want to get back to how we were talking about Wall Street lobbying. So it just goes to show, these politicians, when they're calling for enforcement or regulation, is it because, they're concerned about the little guy getting pushed around by Wall Street, or is it because they're scared of Wall Street people funding, their campaigns getting pushed around by the little guy?
It's, they're just saying regulation. They're not giving many specifics, which is kind of alarming.
No, nor do they ever do, right?
Right. So they're just saying regulation, and that could mean a lot of things. That could mean regulation on communications online, like we were talking about with censorship, or that can mean regulation with insider trading and things like that, which I think we can all agree on. Because regardless if what Wall Street's bets was legal, or not. I think that's kind of missing the point. The point is that the people at the top are allowed to do it, and when the people at the bottom try to, then the pressure is put on.
But that's exactly it. They use the same tools and same loopholes or whatever as the people on Wall Street, but they used it against them. So
Yep.
The tools for destruction are there. It's just whether who uses them, and that's the fundamental problem with Wall Street, is that there are things like this that you can do that completely destroys the entire reasoning of having a stock market, because it turns into a virtual casino.
Yeah, I think this has been kind of an awakening moment for some, where the markets really don't reflect much at all, because GameStop is not a company that is worth hundreds of dollars, per stock. Neither is Nokia or things like this that have been boosted during this time.
Or
and I think
Dogecoin.
Dogecoin, So I think it kind of shows that these values assigned to these stocks are kind of just thought up of and not really representative of any real thing. And that can be manipulated with for good and for bad. And it's showing really the volatility and weakness of the U.S. Economic system, I think.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly it. Like it is a fundamental issue, and I don't really know the solution to that, but more regulation and stopping the big guy from preying on little people with short selling and manipulation. We should never have people betting against companies to fail. That can't be a good business policy no matter where you go. So
especially when these people, I forget the specific example, but one of these major hedge fund guys was taking a short position on it was at the beginning of the coronavirus pandemic, when he goes on CNBC and he talks about, hotels are going to fail, hotels are going to fail, hotels are going to fail, the stocks are going to plummet, and they're never going to come back. Soon as that happens, of course, the stocks plummet because people see an expert on the topic come and give his opinion. And then the moment the stocks hit zero, this guy buys millions of dollars worth of the stock. So it's just lying. It's just lying is what it is. And it needs to be illegal.
Yeah, and I'll defend some of the media has came out and on the side of the Redditors and called out, the exact problem with Wall Street and what they're doing. But there has been people that have put people on the media that are, just totally lying. I saw a guy, and we'll find a clip of it or, a quote. He was basically shaming people about, buying these stocks. You're better off going to the gym or, pursuing your romantic, interests. Like, he's literally shaming these people, guilt tripping them. Like, how dare you make money? That's literally what he's saying.
Has he seen some of the people on Wall Street? Sheldon Adelson's not looking too good right now.
And like I said, the amount of great things I saw from, those people barely getting by, just making a few extra bucks, like the best one I saw was, this guy, is living paycheck to paycheck, and he took his family out to dinner. He made $1,000 off, GameStop stock. And, he only put in a few dollars, but, he got a little bit out, and that's really what the stock market should be. But when it's used like this, it's apparently, it's the end of the world.
Yeah. And that's just because billions have been taken from the top. And I'm glad to see that there's this universal agreement on the issue. How you talked, like I talked to my dad, for example, who is not in line with me politically at all, virtually, on the policies. But we're agreeing on this issue 100%, because he's seen it throughout his whole life, how they always seem to get what we deserve, because it's our tax dollars at the end of the day that is bailing these people out. And
we still don't know how much we paid in 2008 to bail them out.
Right. That number varies from around 500 billion to upwards of trillions. So, it's just a blank check written out to Wall Street every time there's an issue like this.
Yeah. Whenever they struggle, our government, is there immediately. But when a small business is shut down, you can't even get a stimulus out. So.
Yeah, and there might even be a case for letting these banks stay up by propping them up with money. But once we give them the money, then they require the regulation, because, okay, if you're taking our government money, then you have to listen to the rules. No more rule breaking, no more cheating, no more, selling bad stocks and then betting against them, things like that. But they continue to do it constantly, every year.
Yeah, and I think we could sit here and, go on forever just about, everything wrong with Wall Street and, the politics of it. Mm-hmm. But, that could go on forever. And, realistically, it's got to come down to political leaders and future political leaders to, this lobby. Face it, like I said, over $2 billion, I think, in 2020 was just lobbying money from Wall Street. So there is influence from Wall Street in politics. So that has got to be one thing that we got to get over, like you said, the campaign finance reform. We cannot have the people that are breaking the law are paying people to enforce the law.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it just takes political courage, principled stances, and just
And really,
an
it's common
allegiance to the
sense.
people. Yeah, common sense and allegiance to the
There's very
people.
few amount of people in Wall Street that want this. There's very few people on the planet that want this stuff, and it's the few people on Wall Street. So
Yeah, even Mark Cuban came out against it. He was all in favor of the people on Reddit doing
yeah, I
this.
saw that. It was great. It was a great little thread.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that being said, this is the end of WMD Now, episode 2. Make sure to check out other WMD content and the WMD Super Bowl Spectacular coming out this Saturday. So stay tuned for that and future content like always.
Goodbye, America.